Hey everyone, and welcome to the buyer's guide for Sony's full-frame lenses. That's right, the buyer's guide. And one of you is going to leave a comment down below saying, hey, why don't you just tell people to buy the 12 to 24, 24 to 70, and 70 to 200 and be done with it? I could, but that would mean you have to spend £7,000, and I don't want to do that. In 2023, the Sony ecosystem is a very mature one, with hundreds of options in lenses that you could choose from, whether it's Sony, Sigma, Tamron, Samyang, you name it. Can be a little daunting, but fear not. I'm here. I'll break this list down into 3 categories. I'll talk about the pros, the cons, and maybe even recommend a couple of them to you. That'd be good, right? I've got this video chaptered out so that you can scribble through it, maybe find the area or the particular category that interests you the most, and come back to it if you're thinking about buying a different lens. And that is the intro done. Let's get into the first category. The ultra-wide focal length is typically used for landscape, architecture, residential architecture, mainly for selling small London flats because it'll make them look really big, and for content creation like this, vlogging, video creation. It's a fantastic range for that as well. For me, the ultra-wide range is probably the hardest focal length to master because it can easily exaggerate objects within the frame and distort them in weird ways. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And also, this is probably the only category that third-party lenses don't shine. It's fundamentally everyone, Sigma, Tamron, Samyang, all make ultra-wide lenses, but none of them compare to what Sony has been able to do and achieve. I do, however, have to give a special shout out to Sony Zeiss collaboration that happened because it produced a couple of really good lenses. The 18mm Batis and the original 16 to 35 f4 were fantastic. But which are the lenses that I would recommend? Well, there are 3. There's the Sony 16 to 35 f2.8, which comes in around £1,600. There's the 16 to 35 f4, you heard me right, 16 to 35, the same focal range, f4, which roughly costs £1,300. And finally, number 3 is the 20mm 1.8 from Sony, the fixed prime lens. Let's start with the 16 to 35s. The f4 is a more recent addition to Sony's lens lineup, having recently been released in March 2022. It's a sharp, portable, and weatherproof lens, just like the 2.8G Master is. Both of these lenses cover a pretty extensive range from the ultra-wide all the way to the medium format length. For me, I found it really weird that this lens, especially the G Master, makes it into a wedding photographer's bag more often than not. And you can understand why, because you don't know what situation a wedding photographer is going to end up in. You don't know what room they're going to be in, how big the wedding venue is going to be, or the room where people are going to be getting ready is going to be. So the 16 to 35 really covers a solid range. It's a great all-in-one lens for that particular scenario. And both of them, both the f4 and the f2.8, are very sharp at their lowest aperture. And as I already mentioned, the f4 can be bought for $1,300 and the f2.8 can be had for as low as $1,600. Although one caveat here is that the 2.8G Master is likely to be updated in 2023. It's in the rumors, it's likely going to happen because it happened with the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200, so it's likely going to happen. So do keep that in mind if you're thinking about purchasing it. It's a fantastic lens for a great price, which is why the prices come from around £2,100 all the way down to $1,600. So pretty good. Now, the 20mm 1.8 is a fixed focal length, and it doesn't provide quite the same versatility as the 16 to 35s do, but it does make it up in the size department. And of course, it stops down all the way to 1.8, which is roughly 2 1/4 to 1/3 stop better in terms of how much light it can let in. It's also my personal favorite out of the 3. I own the 16 to 35 2.8G Master, and for some reason I just gravitate towards this particular 20mm lens. I'm filming it right now, if you can't tell. I just really love it. Now, before I wrap this up and talk about which are the ones I'd recommend, there's a couple of other special mentions for me. The first one is the 20-70 f4, which has just been released by Sony. It covers a staggering range from 20, which is pretty wide, which is just what this lens is, all the way to 70, although it is only f4, and it does cost £1,500. It's just a lot of money. So it is worth keeping in mind, and it does deserve special mention. But the other lens that's worth thinking about is an APS-C lens. That's right. It's not made for full frame. It's the 10-18 f4 OSS lens. It's a fantastic, nifty little lens, which when you put it onto a full frame camera, turns it into a 12-20 millimeter, which is ultra wide. It's like you can get that close. It's crazy. It's really cool. And you can buy it for £500 roughly, which is very cheap considering how much a 12-24 G Master costs. It's like north of £2,000, like easily. So it does deserve a special mention for me. It's a fantastic little lens, and if you're thinking of going ultra wide, maybe spend £500 first. See if you really love it before you dive into the really expensive thing. So, which lens would I recommend? Well, I have the 20mm and the 16-35 G Master, and I have used both of them extensively, like I've said before, and I would recommend both of them. But if I had to put a title to it, I would probably say that the 16-35 2.8 is the best overall lens that you can buy, especially at this current price of £1,600. And then the 20mm 1.8 would be a really good budget starter lens because it's great for content creation, vlogging, even for architecture and landscape. It's just wide enough, so that, for me, is a really good budget option. Of course, the honorable mention here goes to the 10-18 APS-C lens as well, which is, can be found for under 500, which is fantastic. Before I move on to the next category, remember that towards the end of the video, I'll give you a few combinations of lenses that I would go for at different budgets, how I would pick and choose them. So do stick around for that. But now it's time for the second category. This is the most popular range on the planet. It covers everything from 24 all the way to 100mm range, which is a pretty wide range. Officially, you would probably say starts at 35 medium format and goes to like 80-90, but a lot of the lenses that we're talking about start at this wide-ish 24mm range, go, pretty telephoto style as well. So that's worth remembering. Again, similar to the ultra-wide range, you can use this for landscape, you can use this for architecture, you can use it for street photography. There are a couple of new options in here which you might not have seen in that first range, which one of the biggest one is wedding. And following on from that, photo shoots, whether they're wedding, model, you can do that really well in this focal range. This is also the category where third-party lenses shine, absolutely shine. There are version 2, version 3 of third-party lenses that they've released, which means they've had time to iterate and improve upon them. So I'm really excited to talk about those as well. I've broken this section down into a zoom range and a fixed length range because there is just so much to cover. And first, I'd like to start off by talking about the zoom range. The zoom range here obviously offers the most versatility of any zoom range. It's fantastic. It covers reasonable wide all the way to reasonable telephoto, and you can do so many things within that range, which is fantastic. So the first one is, of course, the Sony 24-70 G Master version 2. Did you expect anything else? It's a fantastic lens. It's around £2,200 right now here in the UK, £2,100 depending on the deal you could get. But that's the first zoom range lens. The second one is the Tamron 28-75 f2.8 version 2. That's right, version 2. And this one is around £750 here in the UK at this point in time. And finally, it's the Sigma 28-70 f2.8, which again roughly costs £730, £750 here in the UK. There's no beating around the bush. The G Master 24-70 is the most superior. It's a fantastic lens. No two ways about it. It's sharp, it has quick autofocus, it's compact, it has everything. It also has a price tag, like I mentioned, of £2,100. And this is where the Tamron and Sigma can just come in under, sneak in under, and help you out. Because both of them are sharp enough, fast enough in terms of autofocusing, and compact enough, certainly compact enough. But the one minor difference between them is that both of these start at 28mm. And you might not think 4mm is a lot, but trust me, it's quite big. But I just can't get my head around it. You would be £1,350 better off if you went with one of these other two options instead of that G Master. It's a lot of money. And then if you put the zoom range to the side, we've got the prime lenses to talk about, and there are so many. 35, 50, 80, 90 macro, 100, 135. Not going to talk about all of those. I have three options for you. The first one, all pretty affordable by the way. The first one is the 35mm 1.8 from Sony, which can be had for £400 or less. It is the street photographer's lens. It's fantastic. It is tiny, it's sharp, fast, does everything. Then we have the Samyang, different one, a Samyang 50mm 1.4 version 2. Another one of these manufacturer who's had a second go at making a lens to make it a little bit better, which is, I love it. I love that they are doing it and investing in it. This one comes in around £600. And then we have the Sony 85mm 1.8, which again comes in under £450 on a good day. And both of these, the 50 and the 85, work fantastically well as portrait lenses. Wow. Whether it's photo shoots, wedding, these lenses are sharper than sharp. Ugh, very good. And very affordable as well. So now that we've talked a little bit about the zoom range and the prime range, which of these make it to the top of my list? Pause and guess for a second which the overall number one winner is for me. Yeah. It's the 24-70 G Master version 2. I'm sorry. I know it's expensive. I would love one. So if you want to buy one for me, leave a comment down below. It's a fantastic lens. Everyone in the whole world loves this camera lens. It's fantastic. It's super sharp. It's, like I said, super compact. It just does everything really, really well. And it deserves the best overall. It does deserve that best overall title. In terms of the budget options, for me, the Tamron 28-75 and the Sony 85 1.8 share that mantle. They're both fantastic. Maybe you could buy both of them for less than the price of that G Master. But wait a little bit longer. Towards the end of the video, I'll tell you what I'd recommend. And that is the standard range, leaving us with the third final option, the telephoto range. This focal range awakens a wildlife photographer in me. That's right. You probably understand. This range is very much focused on sports and wildlife photography, but it doesn't just get pigeonholed for that. You could do landscape, you can even do street photography with it, that's right. And photo shoots with models, whether it's at wedding or normal model photo shoots. You could do pretty much cover the entire range with it. And again, similar to the standard range, there are lots of options out there. There are, of course, fantastic options where you'd have to spend a lot of money, but a lot of third-party options which are very affordable. And I have 4 options that I want to talk about that you could potentially think about when you're looking at this telephoto range. The first one that makes the cut for me is the 70-200 f4 from Sony. That's right, not the f2.8, the f4. This lens can be had secondhand for under $650, right? It's a lot of lens for your money. Trust me when I tell you it's a lot of lens for your money. It's a fantastic range, 70 all the way to 200. And f4 is plenty fast at this focal range. You can, trust me, it's plenty fast. It's not like you need a huge bokeh depth of field situation going on, because f4 is naturally at that focal range deep enough. The second option at this cheaper range of the telephoto side of things is, again, the Tamron 70 to 180. It falls a little bit short at that 200 range, but it's the 70 to 180 2.8. It's really compact, it's beautiful, it's sharp enough, it lets a lot more light in than the 70 to 200 does, and brand new can be had around £1,100, which also is really well priced. Again, a lot of money, a lot of lens for your money. It's really good. This one's also a little bit more compact than the 70 to 200 f4. So if you're thinking about traveling, that might be a good reason to think about this one. They're both equally as good, but one can be had secondhand for a really good value as well. So worth thinking about that. And finally, I want to shift our budget all the way to this other side, because I want to talk about the 70 to 200 2.8 version 2, which again is north of £2,000. But it's a 2.8. It's fantastic. It's fast. It's sharp. It's just been updated, just like the 24 to 70 has. It's great. And it's reasonably compact enough in comparison to the other lens I'm going to talk about, which is the 100 to 400 f4 to 5.6, depending on where you are in the range. This again is a mega monster priced lens. It's quite expensive, but it covers a different focal range. It doesn't do the usual 70 to 200. It covers the 100 to 400, which, sure, you could put a teleconverter on the 70 to 200 and get that range, but built in, it is very, very sharp. It is the sharpest thing I own. It is a beautiful lens. It's great for sports, landscape, portrait, landscape, did I say, wildlife. Just does everything really well. It's a beautiful piece of lens that you can actually afford, unlike the 600 G Master or the 400 G Master, which no one can afford. This one you can actually afford. It is fantastic. It's a great little lens. But having looked at all of these, where would I rank these? Well, I've not left a lot of change in my best overall prizes, as you've obviously noticed in the ultra-wide category and the standard range category, and I'm going to do the same here. I have to give the best overall to the 100 to 400 G Master lens from Sony. Thank you. It's fantastic. I love it. And try it out. If you get a chance, do try it out, because I think you'll love it too. In terms of the budget option, it's really difficult. It is, but I'll probably go for the 70 to 200 Sony f4. It's just that slight bit sharper, and that extra 20mm at the end does really make a difference. And if you don't care about getting a secondhand lens, then you can have a great deal on your hand. It's fantastic. So that's my overall and my budget favorite lens at this telephoto range. There we have it. I've covered the ultra wide, the standard, and the telephoto range. I've given you options at different price points. My favorite one, which I think turns out to be the start of this video, I've kind of recommended you a £2,000 lens at the ultra wide, a £2,000 lens at the standard, and the £2,000 lens at the at the telephoto range. So I've only saved you £1,000 off the £7,000. You've spent £6,000 there. Thank you for listening to this. But as I mentioned earlier, imagine if I only had a certain amount of money. I want to try and break this down into two different lists. The first one is, if I had £2,000 to spend, which of these lenses that I've mentioned would I get? And then we can double that and say, what if I had £4,000? What would I get at that range? They're the two categories that I want to cover. I'll cover the £2,000 category first, because, it's more exciting for me. The one thing I would say is if your camera has come with a particular lens, you know, the cheapy lens that it comes with, then maybe download all the photos onto Lightroom or a software that tells you what focal length that you've taken these photos in, because that might give you a better understanding for yourself as to which direction you gravitate towards, whether you're more an ultra wide or a wide range kind of person, or do you like taking these 70mm side of things photos which are slightly closer up. So that you should most definitely do some research and digging into your photography habits as well, because that might form a better photo. You see what I did there? A better picture of how much or where you want to spend the £2,000 in. So if I had £2,000, there are probably 3 lenses that I would pick. The first one is the one that I'm filming on, the 20mm 1.8. I can't live without it. It costs around £800 and it works as a 20mm lens, but of course you could crop into APS-C and it becomes roughly a 31, 32-ish millimeter length. So that's my first one. That takes out quite a chunk of my £2,000. I've got £1,200 left. Okay, fine. Next up, I'd go for the Tamron 28 to 75, which again can be found for $650-ish. The version 2 of it can be as well. It's a fantastic range. I need it, whether it's for wedding photography, whether it's my lazy, just pick the camera up and I don't want to move a lot. It's a great range. It is the #1 range that everyone most likely shoots in, so I want that one. Okay, that's what? 6 plus 6. 1450. That leaves me £550. That's not a lot of money. Hold on. I found it. And for £550, it's really difficult. Because let me give you the 2 options that I have on my head, and maybe you could comment down below and maybe tell me whether I've picked the right choice or not. For me, it's between the 85mm 1.8, which costs £450, so I'd be well under £2,000 budget, or I go for the 70-200 f4, which would be £600 secondhand in a reasonable quality, condition-wise, and that would take me just over the £2,000 mark. And it's really difficult for me to pick between the 2 of them. The kind of photography that I do, initially, I'll go for the 85 1.8. It's just a fantastic, sharp lens. I've taken some beautiful photos with this lens, and I just can't imagine not having it. So that's the one I'm going with. There you go. I'm under £2,000. I've got 3 lenses that I think I will be happy to live with. 2 primes and 1 zoom. Are you surprised? No? That is a poor man's list, which you could say I own, because I have 3 of those. So that's £2,000. Let's double it. What would I do if I had a little bit more money? If I had £4,000? I'd still go for the Sony 20mm 1.8. That's £800. I would then go for the 24-70 Sony G Master version 2, which is £2,100, so that's £2,900. Still have some options, you know. I would go for the 85 1.8. Oh wow, that's, what's that, 21, 29, 34. Getting close to 4,000. Leaves me around £700 to play with. Oh damn, I can't get that 100 to 400. Yeah, I think I'd go for the 70-200 f4 secondhand, and that would bring me closer to the £4,000 mark. These are my lists. These are the lenses that I would get, whether it's £2,000 and £4,000. Some of these are similar across both of them. Of course, if I had more, I could make a £8,000 list, but that would defeat the point of this video, right? So there you have it. Maybe this is the most interesting list. Let me know if these are the ones that you would pick if you had £2,000. Maybe you'd pick something different. I'd love to hear your thoughts. This has been the buyer's guide for Sony full frame lenses. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.